I think sort of people forget how regular and normal the disciples would have been. It's like,
Yes.
bear in mind, the average age of the disciples, they reckon, was between 15 and 28. This is not, we get this idea of all the paintings and the pictures and Peter with his long beard and,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, they're old men and they're like, all look like Moses and massive muscles. They were ill-educated, poor young people who were for 99% of the time scared, uncertain, confused, dazed, and I don't know, I kind of wanted to strip away this kind of vision and version of Jesus that I think 2,000 years of church has portrayed to regular people. And the real version is wilder, freer, more irreverent,
Come
stronger,
on. Come
more
on.
beautiful and tender than we'll ever imagine.
I know. Pretty wild, huh? Yep. So my new pal, we're going to welcome Bear Grylls to the podcast this week. He's got a phenomenal message and mission that's going on in the world that I want to tell you about that's centered around Jesus. But before we go there, now that I've got your attention, let's do what we do every week. If you're new to the podcast, we're really big on getting out of the madness, getting out of the chaos for a moment, and just taking a moment each time we gather to just let it all go, center ourselves in the love of God, just breathe, just breathe. We call it our pause, and we're going to take that pause right now. And what we do is we say, Father, I give everyone and everything to you right now. Just all of it, friends. I give you the news. I give you my work. I give you the week. I give you my fears. I just need to take a moment and release everything to you, God, so I can come back out of the drama into you, into your presence right here with me and right here within me. And so would you breathe your life into me right now? So friends, just take a moment. What is it that you need to release? Just name the people, name the things you're giving back over to God. It's so good to do this. If you've got a long list, just hit pause and keep going and then come back. But we do this, God, in order to find you again and find your love and your presence with us. And we ask you to meet us in this week's conversation. In Jesus' name, amen. Bear Grylls, it is a joy to welcome you to the Wild at Heart podcast. I said offline to Bear that I feel like we might have been long lost brothers, separated at birth, all the way back to the Man versus Wild days. And since then, I've just had so much respect and affection for you, my brother. So welcome.
You're so kind. Thank you. That's such lovely words. Yeah, it's the amazing thing, isn't it? About I don't know. It's a power of telly as TV. You create connections with people, and for me, that's a positive side of it. Sometimes with my family when we're out and about, and things are tricky with lots of people, and sometimes my kind of family maybe see the what they see as a negative side of it, and I'm always quick to point out, that's very small compared to the positive, which is friends all over the world and connections with people, and I never take that for granted. It's a great privilege, and I feel that with you likewise. I've loved your books for many years, and it's lovely to spend time with you here.
Yeah, likewise. We're going to tell the story in a moment about how you and I got connected, but I'm glad you brought up your family because I know that when all is said and done, you want to be known first as a family man, as a father and a husband. So you and your wife just crossed a big milestone.
Yeah, we've just had our 25th wedding anniversary, which is a great moment. I don't know. I kind of feel, all of us in our lives, our work, obviously a big focus, and it's how we spend so much of our days. But it is really, I see it as just my work. As you say, I really try and form, form much more of the things I'm proud of in this life around my close relationships, and obviously family is number one there. And I really fight hard in my life to keep family first, and made many errors over the years of early days of TV, just being away so much. And it's been such a privilege the last sort of 15 or so years to be able to really take control of the productions much more, and to be able to prioritize my family. And everyone's better for that, I think. um so yeah, I've always tried to keep as much as I can, keep that number one.
Yeah. Congratulations on 25 years. I feel like in this day, in this hour, that is a beautiful, beautiful accomplishment, a testimony to the world when so many well-known people within Christendom and without are losing their marriages. I just congratulations to that. And you've got three boys that you're raising who are now in the teenage years. How's that going?
Yeah, it's going fast. It's again such that's a great joy of life, isn't it? It's nice what you say about marriage and 25 years, and sometimes we forget that. I remember really well somebody saying to me, "Don't give me any marriage advice until you've hit 25 years. I'm not interested."
Yep. Yep.
And I think having hit 25 years, I'm not sure I've got much to dispense, but I think I got lucky. I married a really, lovely, lovely, grounded girl who's, we got married pretty young, and it's been a journey. And, I think we both lost our fathers quite young. And I think in our first year of marriage, age 24, 25, and it brought us together really fast, really
Mm,
close. Um,
mm.
and suddenly we kind of had to grow up pretty fast. We had to deal with life. There was no fallback plan suddenly. But as you know, as a as a man who's had a family a long time, it goes in a heartbeat. And
Yes.
I don't know. I think it's the thing I'm most proud of in my life. It really is. I think we can only ever measure all of our wealth in terms of the quality of our relationships, rather than the things we have, or
Yeah.
win or gain. It's the quality of our relationships is a measure of how rich we are. And I feel really, really fortunate. And as you say, our boys teenagers now. And uh and I don't know, that's been a continual gift every day. We have so much fun. The eldest one works with me a lot. He's now 21. Actually, the others are 18 and 16. And
Yeah.
and the middle one wants to join the military, and the youngest one is sport obsessed, but really tight family.
Mm,
And
mm,
yeah, like you say, great gift.
You are a wealthy man in that regard. Yeah. Stace and I raised three boys as well and just loved it. Loved those years. Loved those years. And
Yeah,
what's really beautiful is that we have wonderful relationships with our sons, married now, raising families of their own. And I see that for you. I think that building into your sons, building into the family, you'll be tight for the rest of your lives.
I hope so. And it's so interesting. It's seasons, isn't it? We all go through these seasons, and you're at that stage ahead. I mean, in a way, I kind of look forward to that. And life is interesting as we get older, then maybe have less energy. And and you need the energy at the start. And I traveled yesterday, and I'm chatting to a young father who's I didn't know. I just happened to be walking next to him with his young kids running riot, and he looked kind of stressed. And you know
Yep.
I said, "Oh, it's good though. It's hard, but it's good." And
Yeah.
yeah, so seasons. So I look at you as a great figure of inspiration like that. If you can, as you say, keep your family tight, and stay together, and keep good relationships with them, that's a beautiful thing. And how often do both of us in our lives probably come across people who have worldly everything but dysfunction at home, and It's
Yeah.
that's not so fun, and I think it's not easy, and all of us fail often, but I think having it as a
Mm,
priority, that even in the difficult seasons, trying
mm.
to sort of keep family number one and try to keep the humility of being able to say sorry often and prioritize family. I think it comes back to us as life goes on.
Yeah, it does. It comes back around. Now, I'm curious, what in the world does the Grills family do on holiday? I mean, where how do you guys enjoy your downtime?
Well, I think it's much less kind of glamorous than maybe people think. The cliche would be much more kind of like always out, hunting or like whatever. But actually, we have a very, very kind of, um, I don't know, just a cozy family life. We do live in quite a wild place. We spend a big part of the year up in North Wales in the UK on this
Mm,
little island, which is off grid, off mains electricity. But it's not just a cabin. It's a lovely home now. Shara, my wife, has made it beautiful. But it is quite, it's quite a mission to get to. It's a 3 mile cross open, pretty wild water, especially in bad weather. And we take the inflatable rib, and the dogs and the children when they were babies were like, to have them in one arm, the shopping in the other, day and night, big seas, trying to dock the boat and against the jetty
yeah.
on the island. So they've really been brought up in a really fun, outdoorsy way. But at the same time, I think as a family, it's not like dawn to dusk adrenaline. We're actually a very cozy family, and you're just as likely to find everybody arguing in the kitchen, fighting for, you know, oven time, and
Yep.
watching a movie curled up together. And I know we like to train a lot. I definitely like my training. I do that most days outside, and one or two of the boys would join me for that. So we like that.
Mm.
But so yeah, a mix of outdoors in terms of where we live, but pretty regular in how we live.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, same here. I think people picture John Eldridge always out in the wilderness somewhere, but yeah, we love our family time and we love tacos and being together and yeah, telling stories.
So do.
Okay, so speaking of stories, I want to tell our audience you're talking to a very kinship audience. These are wild men and women who love God deeply, and who are after the real thing. They're after the authentic, and not the pretense, which I know is very deep to your ethos. So you have a couple projects I want to tell our audience about. But before we kind of as a segue into that, you had an article recently in the Times where it's a beautiful invitation to try faith, try Christianity. It's something like that. In order to experience Christianity, you have to try it on with something like the title of that. Um, I'm curious about this emergence uh, of the faith side of your life coming more perhaps to the forefront. Am I reading that correctly?
I think faith for me has always been there. It's not like a new thing. It's been the bedrock and the glue to my family. It's been foundational to so much of my work. But I hold faith, privately. And I think faith, for it to be real, it should be personal and often hard to express. And my faith has just as many moments of doubt and struggle as it does of conviction and moments of power. So um, I don't feel that's changed over the years, apart from I pray it's grown, but it's not like, it's not like it's new. But I think what is new is the amount I'm being asked about this. People ask me now all the time, and I think once things start to creep out about that, that grows, and then people ask you about that. And we started to do a couple of TV shows that had elements of faith. Started small. It started with probably, with Man vs. Wild, where I'd sometimes like say a little prayer on that night cam as I was,
Mhm.
heading down in a jungle or something like that. Start little, or maybe an observation of like, we all need something. What gives us hope? For me, it's my family and my faith in these dark moments in a storm up a mountain. It might have been something as small as that. And then we started doing Running Wild, which was a show where we started to take Hollywood and well-known folk away. And then I got that chance to take President Obama whilst he was still
Mhm.
in office, and they included a little prayer at the end where it was kind of meant to be an off-camera moment, really, where I just felt at the end of our journey together, here's a guy who's carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. You know, could I pray for you before we all go? And I didn't even know it was being filmed, to be honest. It just felt like a
Mm.
and then that went in the show, and then people asked me a lot about that, and then we started to make a couple of TV shows. I did one last year about I traveled through Israel and told the story of Jesus, told the unsanitized real story, what it was really like, and that show went out on TBN called Refugee, Renegade, Redeemer, and all around the world. And that's so these things sort of grow, and then the more you do, the more you get asked about. And then this year it sort of culminated in me writing this book called The Greatest Story Ever Told. So, I mean, I suppose you could argue, I am doing more about it, but I think in life, you can only just follow your heart and follow what you feel is important. And there hasn't been any grand plan, but like with parenthood, everything has a season. And
Yeah.
maybe this has been the right season, and I've tried to follow my heart. And
Yes.
as people get asked me more about it, you can only try and share what faith has done honestly and hope it helps people in some
Yes.
way.
Yes. Yeah, it's beautiful. The Times article is very, very beautiful because it's very invitational. And you're saying, look, this is what it's done for me. And I think you compared it to ice cream and swimming. You said faith is something that you need to try on. You have to try it
Well, it's
to,
like, I don't know, it's like, well, that Times thing was an old column they had for many decades called the Credo column. And then it finished, and they wanted to restart it. And I don't know why they came to me and they said, would I restart, would I write this first one for them and talk about what faith means? And I don't know, faith is, like I said, it's hard to describe, isn't it? And it was more of like, my ice cream and swimming analogy was less about trying it. It was more about like it's hard to describe. Like
yes. Okay.
if you're trying to describe to somebody a beautiful scoop of ice cream, or swimming, it's like, well, you jump in this stuff and it keeps you afloat and it feels amazing, but you kind of like it's a and I think faith is a bit like that. People go,
Mm.
what is it? And I go, at heart, I don't know, beyond the fact that it's beautiful and it's full of light and it's empowering, and it helps me stand when I feel weak, and it's light to a dark path and strength through a failing body. And it's the truth. It's where I find strength and confidence, and it's where I'm securing my future. And you speak in words like that, and it's like, you know, I can't really articulate it more than that. And it's like, but it's good. So I
Yeah.
try to write about that a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to talk about your book, The Greatest Story Ever Told. This is a beautiful book, gang. And part of the reason I asked Bear to come on is I want everyone to know about this. It's almost like The Chosen in book form. It's the story of Jesus, but it's told in a very sort of gritty, experiential way from Mary's perspective, his mom, from Thomas's perspective, from Peter's, from John's, and then from Mary Magdalene. It's just so lovely. It's so well done, Bear. So first off, congratulations on this. This is a killer book.
It's a killer book. It's also the hardest thing I've ever done. Forget Special Forces selection or the summit of Everest. This was an Everest of another level for me, because I'm not just telling an adventure story. I'm telling the greatest story ever told. This is not like
Yeah.
maybe the greatest story ever told or could be. I'm telling his story, history, the greatest story. So I didn't want to kind of screw it up, and it's interesting because The Chosen is so brilliant, and and I actually got to take the cast of The Chosen on a series of Running Wild. Hasn't aired yet. It comes out early next year with their season 6, and I got to take all the leading actors away on an adventures, and it was a huge privilege and super fun. And actually, the theologians on The Chosen were so helpful for me with this book. But I think where it differs, The Chosen obviously is creating dialogue for Jesus all the time, and which is fine. The Chosen is a great big uh, arrow pointing people towards the light. But I wanted to do something different in the sense that I didn't want to deviate 1 inch. So even though this is kind of written as a thriller, and some pastor said to me yesterday who just read it, he goes, it's like if John Grisham was tasked with writing the Jesus story, this is what you've done. And
Ah,
that's a
nice.
that's a nice compliment. But what I haven't done is I haven't changed a single word of
Yeah.
Jesus's. So, I take it from different translations, his words, but I just knew from the beginning the one thing I didn't want to do was just I'm not gonna make anything up here. I'm just gonna tell the story from A to Z, but colloquialize it, show it, make it raw and real, and the
Mm,
unsanitized, un-Christmas sort of,
mm.
white sort of Western version of Jesus. I wanted to say what it was really like, and put it in that context for people. So, as I say, hardest thing I've ever done, but I
Mm.
know it's the best thing I've ever done by miles. And I've got a clear
Yeah.
goal that every person on the planet gets to read this story afresh, because
Yeah.
most people, even people of faith, very few actually know the whole story. We tend to know stories, like the Good Samaritan or whatever the parable is. But to do it from start to finish as that kind of thriller type book had never been done before. So that was a mission, and that is a vision.
Yeah, it is. How long did it take you to write?
Well, I wrote it pretty quick. I wrote it in the jungle I was filming, and I had my elder son with me, and we'd film during the day, and we were staying in this little lodge for a month, and I was writing all night, every night, sleeping a few hours, and my son kept thinking, he goes, are you on drugs or something? It's like, you're just like, this is crazy. And I'm going, I know, it's just kind of coming. It's like, here we go. And so I got it down pretty fast, but then the going through the sort of getting the theology absolutely right was really hard, because
Yes.
there's so many nuances. I mean, look at your book, look at your one of the playfulness of Jesus, which that's your Wild at Heart book, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, Beautiful Outlaw.
Beautiful Outlaw, that's the one. Yeah, that
Yes.
was like, I would say that book was one of the top 3 for me in terms of inspiration for the greatest story, because you know, you'd read a book like that, hundreds and hundreds of pages, but on just a few interactions, whether it's like, Jesus and Peter at the end on the beach cooking fish after the resurrection, Peter sees Jesus for the first time. You write so well about that interaction, but it's like, I can't throw it away. There's so many nuances. Like there's hundreds of books on every interaction of Jesus, so it became really sort of challenging to make sure I wanted you to be able to read this book and go, yeah, you've got the playfulness of Jesus. You've got the intensity of Jesus. Yes, you've got the courage of Jesus. Yes, you've got the humility of Jesus, and that was a real challenge of it. And it's where, people like you were such a support to me, having that resource of really considered books like
Mm,
yours to draw on, and then a few key theologians to really guide every little intonation of
mm.
every encounter.
Well, you did it. You did it.
I don't know. Well, it's an effort.
Congratulations.
It's my best effort.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And okay, so just describing it to our audience, it's the gospel story. It's the story of Jesus, but you start with his mom because his mom can cover the early years, but it's written first person from Mary. What was it like to encounter Gabriel? What was it like to flee to Egypt? What was it like to be a refugee family in Egypt? Like that's described so well. of the fear of that life and the anonymity and the hiding and poverty of it all. And then to get through the story, you use different, you use Thomas and then you use Peter. Peter's story on the Mount of Transfiguration. I just love you're describing. He picked one of the biggest ones I've ever seen, the biggest mountains I've ever seen, the rockiest, steepest, cloudiest peak in the region. And then Peter's describing what it was like to climb up and then to encounter Elijah and Moses talking to Jesus. It's just so well done.
You wrote about that bit beautifully as well, and it's I think sort of people forget how regular and normal the disciples would have been. It's like
Yes.
bear in mind the average age of the disciples, they reckon was between 15 and 28. You know, this is not, we get this idea of all the paintings and the pictures and Peter with his long beard and,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
they're old men and they're like, all look like Moses and massive muscles. They were ill-educated, poor young people who were for 99% of the time scared, uncertain, confused, dazed, you know. And I don't know, I kind of wanted to strip away this kind of vision and version of Jesus that I think's 2,000 years of church has portrayed to regular people. And the real version
Yes.
is wilder, freer, more irreverent,
Come
stronger,
on. Come
more
on.
beautiful and tender than we'll ever imagine. So that was a goal, but it was interesting doing it from these different perspectives because really his story is all of our stories. And that's what I wanted to be able to people relate to
Mm.
wherever they are at, whether they are that skeptic of Thomas, whether they are that broken, sort of fragile Mary of Magdalene at the end, whether they are that strong, kind of like raw, impulsive, you know, Peter. Uh, it's all of our stories wrapped up in this, and it's sort of just work to do it from those different perspectives.
Mm.
And as you say, it starts off with Mary, very innocent, but also scared. She's young, she's pregnant, she's not yet married, she's outcast. That's a scary place, but and she's thinking, am I mad? Is this vision of this angel? Am I crazy? But I know what I saw. And and then it's sort of her confidence grows to by the end when Jesus starts his kind of ministry, she's the one nudging him on. And there's that
Yes, I
beautiful
love that.
scene that again you have written so beautifully over the years about that wedding at Cana of like, and I got the feeling that Jesus knew that once he starts tinkering with the supernatural, the journey begins. Those 3 years, he knows exactly, that process starts. And it's almost kind of
Mm.
feels like he's been delaying this time just to be able to soak up
Mm.
life as fully human. And he takes to 30, it's a long time. It's not like he starts at 17, he's waited till 30 and it's almost like his mother knows it's his time. And she's the one nudging him and he's at this wedding and he's having fun and he's with his friends and it's like she sees a problem and she sees a solution. This wine's running out and she knows he can sort it and he's going, just leave me be. I'm having fun. I'm with my friends. Like, it's just not now. It's not my time. Must have. I can almost imagine him having said that to his mother many times. Like, it's not yet my time. And yet, what I love is that Mary doesn't even reply to that. All she does, she
Yes.
replies to the servants and says, just do whatever he says. And that's a beautiful line, Wow. I mean, you could write a book on that line, for all of us. Just
Yes.
like,
Yes.
just do whatever he says. And that mother's nudge, and he does it, and the
Mm.
journey now begins.
Mm.
And then,
Mm.
her bit ends, and then Thomas picks it up, and he's instantly cynical of like, you might have been,
Mhm.
others might have been fooled by even though it's 600 gallons of water into wine, it's a lot.
Yeah.
But others might have been fooled by the magic trick, but it was going to take more than that to convince me. And then that
Yeah.
journey sort of begins.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, I love it. I love it. And even though I know these stories, well. This book was a gift to my heart because there was just that yes again.
Mm,
Yes, it was
mm,
real. Yes, he's that wild
mm,
and that kind and that scandalous and that loving and like it was just this deep yes
mm.
because he's still doing this kind of thing in our lives, like asking
Turning,
you to write a
turning,
book.
turning tables, turning lives upside down, you know. But in a way, I kind of wrote it. I want, you know, I so someone like you who has so many sort of decades of beautiful study and knowledge and experience, you know, I really want to get it right for people like you as well. Not just for, you know, I'm getting already thousands of letters from people of all faiths, like Muslims and people all over the world, and it's not even out yet. You know, these are just pre-orders that have gone out to people and have been shared. And, you know, I'm getting so many of these. So, but it's not just for the people who find this story for the first time and have their hearts changed and melted. I wanted people like you to be able to
Mm,
go, you've got this bit right, that nature of him right, because you and me have spent our life sort of seeking and sifting the real from the unreal, finding the truth away from the religious, the real away from the kind of
yeah,
sanitized. And
yeah.
I just wanted like that sifting of the wheat and the chaff. I just wanted this to be the good stuff, the real stuff, the raw, the powerful, and the relevant parts of Jesus without any of the bits that our society has sort of attributed to him and to our faith over the last 2,000 years, which, to be honest, there's a lot of kind of bad stuff. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of good stuff in there as well. The church is beautiful. But, you know, I think the church has a lot, also, all of us do have a lot to answer for in how we share this message of light and love. Because
Mm,
the truth is, the message is undeniably beautiful. I mean, you could stand me in a mosque or a hospital or a prison, and I would have nothing to fear or be ashamed of. I'm sharing a message that is universally about love and forgiveness and finding home, finding strength, finding peace in our lives. Who doesn't want that? And yet, somehow, the church has managed to isolate and divide and judge and confuse and deter so many people. And
mm,
our job as ambassadors, you know, this is what you are, it's what I am, it's what your listeners are. Our job as ambassadors is to, you know, sift out the bad stuff from the good and to share only the beautiful and the light and the affirming. And, you know, there's no one who encountered Jesus in that story who didn't come away changed. You know, often
mm,
challenged, of course, but invariably changed for the better, you know. And those that rejected it, there was some darkness going on there, and that rejection was often sort of reluctance. I mean, look at Pontius Pilate. Even at the end, you know, he kind of
mm.
knows this guy is, there is no wrong in this guy. You know, he's got his wife writing to him saying, be careful, do not
Yeah.
condemn this guy to death. You know, so that's the Jesus we must keep sharing.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So, um, okay, let's put this in the larger context for a moment. So, uh, I saw that Pete Gregg recently announced that he's going to leave his church role so that he can spend more time in what he's calling the quiet revival. That seems to be a significant move of God in Britain. And so the timing of these things, the timing of the chosen, the timing of your book, the timing of what's going on, it does seem like something's happening.
I mean, it just is. And the thing is, we're never in charge of the timing. It's like, you know, it's that old age thing of everyone goes, when's Jesus coming back? And I remember a preacher once saying, our job is to be on the welcoming committee, not the planning committee. And I think with timing of things in our life, it's the same. You know, it's like things go wrong when we're just on the planning committee of what we're doing in our life. You know, our job is to stay close to him, be cheering him on. And, you know, he'll sort the timing out. And his timing is good. You know, I certainly never planned to, you know, even like filming this thing with the Chosen cast, and then how beautifully that led into doing this book and the timing of that, and now they're getting behind the book to help drive that, and and that revival, as you say, in the UK. None of these are accidents. God never says oops. He says ow because there is pain all around us, but he never says oops. It's
Mm,
never a surprise. His timing is beautiful, and our job is to try as best we can to listen to our hearts and to have
mm,
then the courage to follow that. And it does take, I think, courage for all of us in our life to stand up for truth and to walk side by side with the Almighty. And it's like doing that is counterculture, but it's the place of great power. And I don't know, I've always been a soldier mentality. One of the things I did for research for this book is I read the Bible all the way, cover to cover, straight through. And I counted 365 times it told me to do not be afraid. So
mm.
I'm a soldier. It's like you tell me that's going to be the goal. I might not always manage it, but that's going to be my goal, to live like that with courage and to follow the calling.
Yes. Yeah. When I reached out to you and we were chatting about this by email, I said, "This is bigger than Everest." And your reply was basically, "Oh, mate, it way bigger than that." Like,
Well, it's been, like I say, it's been harder and bigger. But, also I think when we do things for ourselves in our life, like our own achievements, they're tins and pots. They come and go. And I don't know, I kind of look at the Everest and all those sort of things. They will come and go. But this for me feels, the reason I feel so passionate about it and I feel it's the greatest thing I've done is it is about other people's lives. It's more than that. It's about
mm,
other people's future lives. So if I could, I've done 106 books now. If I could, I'd give them all up in a heartbeat for this. This is the one
mm,
that
mm,
I'm most proud of, and I dream most that people all around the world will
mm,
read and absorb and find light and happiness and empowerment from.
mm. I love you for that. I
Thank you.
love that. I love that about you. And I wanted to just do what I could to daylight
Hold on
this.
one sec, John. Hold on. I'm just gonna give my son a hug because he's leaving. Are you heading
Oh,
off?
brilliant.
You're so sweet. I love you. Yeah, you're the best. I'll see you tomorrow. Is Tinky gone? No, not yet. Mm. Sorry to interrupt. I'll
You're
see
all
you tomorrow.
good. It's
Ring
all
in the
good.
morning. Sorry, yeah.
No, that's brilliant. Um, our friends love telling people about the real Jesus. And this book is a great, great tool, everybody. It's just this is the kind of thing you're gonna feel so comfortable giving Uncle Harry. You're gonna feel so comfortable giving to, your honestly, your Muslim coworkers, at the store. You're gonna feel so comfortable giving this to your boss. It's very readable. It's very inviting. So this feels like this is part of what God's doing in the world right now.
I think you're right, and it's happening. It's like we all see it all around us now, and it's almost like our time, isn't it, to step up and here we go and take that
Yep.
365 demand to be courage, and here we go. But I really wanted this book to be like that, to be super accessible and easy to read. All the chapters are like 3 pages long, from beginning to end. And like a slow reader. I'm a bad reader. I fall asleep after about 5 minutes. And I think there are many people like that who kind of struggle with books. And so I really wanted this. I mean, I've had two of our team just the other day who, young people, they just never read. They're just like on their phones all the time. And they both
Yeah.
read this and they go, I had no idea. This like blew me away and was so easy to read. And it's got to be like that, I think, because the world is changing, and you've got to adapt, and you've got to kind of, we should be at the forefront of that. And Jesus' story should always be at the forefront of that.
Yeah. 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 Beautiful. Okay. So last thing, you took the chosen out into the wild? What?
Yeah, I did.
What did you
That
guys
was
do?
fun. Well, it's a series. It's called Chosen in the Wild. I took took six of them, and culminated. The last two were Dallas and Jonathan Rumi at the end. And I don't know, one of my dreams in my life, it was funny. I remember after doing the Obama Running Wild, we then did one with Prime Minister Modi of India. And I always I remember my friend jokingly at the end had said, well, you've done the American president, you've done the biggest country on earth, now India, the prime minister. I suppose there's only Jesus to go, and that was always his joke. And actually pretty cool. I mean, it wasn't really Jesus, but we got pretty close. So that was kind of fun. Um, but actually, his
Yeah.
story was really beautiful. And I think what's fun about Running Wild is, as you know, you take people out on an adventure into the mountains. You have time to really get to know their story. And actually,
Mm.
Jonathan's hasn't been easy. It's been actually a really tough cross to bear, having to play that role. And you know, it's been his journey really hasn't been easy, and he was beautifully honest and vulnerable about it. And
Mm.
initially I had to definitely sort of resist the jokes of like, well, fishing's going to be easy around the campfire tonight. And you know
Yeah.
because pretty soon it became apparent he's like, it really has been a tough one for him to bear. And
Mm.
he's become a great friend since, and I love that connection. He's doing so well filming at the moment, some pretty intense stuff. And it just reminds me that the best things in life, those friendships that come from the adventures in the outdoors, are always unique, whether it's with our families or good friends or on TV shows like this. There's a bond that you don't always get just kind of, you know, sat around or maybe on a chat show couch telling a funny story for a few minutes. There's a connection when you take people out for a couple of days like that. And I really value that. I'm grateful for that. But I really think it will be really revealing for people getting to know some of
Mhm.
the cast behind this phenomenon. It is been a phenomenon. It continues to be. Dallas's
Yeah.
story as well was just amazing. But it's now the number one TV show in the world. I mean, that's unbelievable. It's like, well done them. And again, they're pointing people towards the light in a beautiful way. And so bravo them. Yeah.
Yeah. Bravo them. And let me say without embarrassing, bravo you. Like you've got a big heart, Bear. You've got a big heart. You obviously have a wild heart, but you have a really good heart. You
Oh,
have a
you're so
good
kind.
heart, Bear. And I
Well,
just delighted to make this connection. Really stoked to tell everyone I can about your book, The Greatest Story Ever Told. I think it comes out actually in July, uh, at least here in the US on Amazon. So we'll put it in the show notes. We'll tell everybody about it. Thank you for taking time to do this conversation.
oh, well, I'm so grateful to you, and back at you. Keep up the great work. You're shining bright and spreading positivity and good influence everywhere. So keep going. And I thank you for the encouragement for the book. Like I said, I don't feel this is my book. This is all of our book to share with people. I mean, last week, I saw this lady walking out holding 20 copies, and they did a release for one day of some pre-orders, and she just like,
Mm,
I would go, who are they for? And she goes, well, this is for my son and his friend, and he's like, my son can never he always finds it hard to share his faith, but this is going to be perfect for this is for my like, my auntie. And it's like, that's the power of it. If we can share this story and get the
yes.
Jesus story, unsanitized truth, into people's
Yes.
hearts, the world needs it now more than ever.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. Cheering you on, Bear. Thanks for coming on our podcast. We're really honored to have you.
Thank you. Thank you. And don't underestimate how powerful, that beautiful outlaw book was. That is, I mean, I don't know if you saw, I put it in the back of The Greatest Story Ever Told. It's
I
one
was
of the,
very honored.
well,
Yeah.
I thought, where do you point people next when they've been on this roller coaster? And there are a few key books in the back there, that have been really powerful for me, but yours is one of them. And
Mm,
the Lord anointed you with that one.
thank you. Thank you.
God bless, guys.
There's also a prayer at the back of the book that goes something like this, and I want to pray it together. Father, we pray that this book the greatest story ever told, reaches millions for Jesus.
Mm,
We pray it reaches millions all over the world of all faiths and no faith.
mm,
Use this as part of your great wave that you are bringing over the world now of the
mm,
revelation of Jesus.
mm.
In his name, amen.
Amen. Come on. You're a great man.
Yeah.
God bless. Keep in
Yeah.
touch, John.
God bless. I will. You too.
Hey friends, this is Alan. Thanks for being part of this week's podcast. And before you rush off into what's next, we invite you to spend some time reflecting with God on what you've heard and on where He's leading.